There's a good ball played in for Tony Morley. Oh, he must be! And it is! Peter Will! Villa in the lead!
Welcome everyone to From Witten to Rotterdam and Aston Villa podcast. We're your hosts. My name is Eddie.
Hi, and I'm James.
And today we're joined by Derek Chandler, chairman of the Space City Lions, all the way from Houston, Texas. Derek, how you doing today?
I'm great. Glad to be here, gents.
Hey, glad to welcome you, especially given circumstances. We're just having a happy, nice, friendly Villa fan face across from us, and not just the team who went out there on Sunday against Tottenham. But we're going to get into all of that, and I think that's actually a good place to start. So it's been a little bit quiet for us. We missed recording the last week, so unfortunately we didn't get to recap our real dreadful draw against Newcastle. We're not going to talk about it. There's no reason to talk about it, but we are going to talk a little bit about our loss to Spurs yesterday. So Aston Villa 0, Spurs 2. It was what we can call a drab affair. I think there was not a ton to get out of your seat about, unless you're someone who likes to yell at poor refereeing decisions, but we can talk about that in a little bit. But I'll start with you, Derek. Heading into the game, it's been a rough run without our captain, the talisman, Jack Grealish. So heading into this Tottenham game, especially after they had their own little bit of a letdown in the Europa League in midweek, how are you feeling about it? What were your thoughts heading in?
Well, I don't want to say I was pessimistic, but I wasn't really expecting to get too much out of it. I just think, as much as we hate to admit it, we really rely on Jack, and just I think we were slowing down a little bit before he went out. So I think we're seeing a little bit of a team that's hitting the wall here, and obviously we need some reinforcements in the upcoming window. So I'm kind of expanding on your question, but no, I didn't think we were going to get a whole lot out of that. I was hoping for a good performance, but not so much that either. So.
No, you could say that again. It was, far from a performance. I think that would have left us feeling pretty good. James, I'll go to you. Heading in, were you thinking we were going to grab something from it, or were you feeling pessimistic as well?
Historically, with Spurs, I'm trying to think if I've ever seen us beat Spurs in the flesh. It doesn't happen very often. So probably going back quite a long time, seeing them live beat Spurs. But so never confident playing them, especially when they show all the past games before the match, and you're thinking, wow, we've had some proper beatings from these over the years. But then I saw their starting lineup and thought, you know what, there's not much pace there. We could probably give them a game. I was sort of expecting Jack to be back, if I'm being honest. I think I sort of felt up until the press conference, it sounded like he might be around for it. Because the way it's worded was, it's in Jack's hands. So I thought if it's in Jack's hands, then he's probably going to be playing. But wasn't to be. And once you see that starting lineup without Jack again, you just think, where's the goals going to come from, or where's the spark coming from? And unfortunately, so it proved.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll just kind of open it up to discussion right here. I saw the lineup as well. Obviously, the big name missing was Jack, but it also kind of brings up the question of that midfield three. I was obviously happy to see Matty Cash back, but that midfield three keeps chopping and changing. And I think Smith said it himself, a little bit of horses for courses, picking the team for the people in front of you. But it's been really inconsistent all the way through. Even new signing Morgan Sanson has, had some trouble carrying the load. So Derek and James, I'll just leave it up to you. What did you think of that lineup when you saw it? Or was that what you would have gone with? Or would you have made some changes if you were in the manager's shoes?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think I've said before, firstly, Trezeguet for me isn't a left winger, so it's a waste of a player for me there. I like the lad. I think he puts a shift in, but he's a right-sided player, and that's it. That's his limitation. So you're wasting and putting him on the left. So I would have had El Ghazi on the left for a start. In respect of the three midfielders, I think at the moment they're all a bit of a muchness, if I'm honest. I can't recall if Nakamba was actually on the bench or not, but I probably would have said that was a game from Nakamba again. I would have liked to have seen him amongst it. But aside from that, we don't seem to have, like we sort of touched on, we don't have a great deal of options, do we? I think a lot of our players, especially in the midfield area, seem out of form at the moment, which is really disappointing. So it's not there's not three obvious picks. So you go, oh yeah, they're a certainty at the moment. So it's a tough pick. What do you reckon, Derek?
I don't really know who has performed well in the midfield for a while now since Jack's been out. Anyway, once again, I don't claim to be I don't have the knowledge or the intricacies of some of my expat Houstonians do, but it seems like they're kind of we call it in American baseball a quadruple A player, not quite big league, but better than triple A. And it seems like we have a few of those in the midfield to me, to use an Americanism. So you'll forgive me that.
No, as a Mets fan, that's something I've gotten used to over the years. A lot of those in-betweeners trotting out day in, day out and making up the numbers. But no, it was a little bit of a strange one. I think at this point, you want them to change it. I think Barkley's come under some scrutiny in the last few weeks, but like there really has been no option that has really looked the part recently. And I think that's been the tough thing. Really just, no one's pulling their weight. And I don't know if it's a case of just low confidence, everyone's just a little bit of out of form, hitting a rocky patch, or if Jack is really that much more important in terms of how the whole team operates and us sort of executing the game plan. But regardless of who was on there, we did play a game of football yesterday, allegedly. So those first 30 minutes actually didn't actually look too bad either. I think Villa were on top, but with nothing to show for it. Passed the ball around confidently. We got it around. We controlled a little bit of the pace, but really, no shots on target. Really not threatening, but also, not really relinquishing too much either. So I'll start with Derek, and then I'll go to James. We looked like we were playing a little bit, but it was missing something. Obviously, you don't want to say it was missing a person. Obviously, we were missing Jack, but that's not the point. What do you think is honestly wrong with this side right now? Because it just looks like we couldn't get anything close to the box going.
Well, I always hear the phrase thrown around, a cutting edge, which I don't think we have much of that without Jack. And I think it's more than one player missing. I think he's the cog in the center of everything Villa are trying to do, especially attacking. And I think his being out affects everybody. It's probably more than it should, but that's where we are as the club right now. I think the big improvements from the last few years are obviously more on the defensive side, and so we definitely have shored that up. But as far as attacking, when Jack's out, I mean, where's that going to come from? Where's that going to start? And I don't know. I think there's something we have to address as far as depth and just quality surrounding Jack, so they can't neutralize Villa by taking him out of a match. I don't know what we do. Obviously, it requires some strengthening in the next windows.
I will go over it again, but I think the problem with Jack not being around is, but when Jack is playing, he seems to occupy a couple of defenders. So all of a sudden, your other players have got that space to move into. So Barker was way more effective. Watkins probably had a bit more space, and whoever's on the right hand side had the space as well. But now there's just not the quality in the team, so that they can all be seen out of the game by the defenders. And the ball's not getting forward quick enough, in my opinion. Watkins, I don't think he barely touched the ball in the area from memory. He's a winning runner, and for me, he fully deserves to be talked about with England and getting in the squad. That's great, but in terms of creating chances for him, there was nothing yesterday, and it's just a bit of a hopeless task for him. So, we at the moment, whilst we have got a couple of players that can pull something out of the bag, I look at Troy Ore and El Ghazi, players that could do something. They need to be on form to do it at the moment. They're not, unfortunately. The one positive for me from yesterday was Cash back in the side. Down that right hand side, he offers much more of a threat. Getting towards the edge of the area. Of course, he wasn't great in terms of defending, which we'll get onto in a moment. But certainly, providing that extra option and extra pace going forward. Give us a glimpse as to what we can expect in the coming weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, and speaking of poor defending, I think Cash was one of the folks at fault, but it wasn't a good day at the office for the back four. Let's put it that way. With a few soft ones let up. So we'll get on to the first one right now. Kind of a nothing ball over the top. Mings actually kind of had it covered, but Emmy channeling his inner Pepe Reina after watching the highlights beforehand from the Leicester game last year. Kind of flapped at it, a rough clearance, and, looked to a tap into Vinicius, who, I don't want to disparage a player who hasn't been getting game time, because good for him for getting on the field and taking his chance, but just celebrating like that, like the way he celebrated against that 8th tier team, I feel like it was a bit much. But yeah, I'll go on. I'll just kind of leave it open to the group. Do you think that was mostly on Emmy, or do you think a few of the folks around the squad could have probably done a little bit more to help him out there? Because it was just a kind of a comedy of errors.
For me, that's not Emmy's ball. It shouldn't be. You don't need to leave your area unless there's an immediate threat. I mean, because obviously the advantage being the goalkeeper. It's like plain and simple is you can use your hands. You can't use your hands when you're outside the area. We've got defenders in place to defend. So the worst case scenario is Konza or Mings will get beats in that situation, and it's Kane or Moreira or whoever had the ball has got to do quite a lot to still score from there. But once he comes out and he doesn't connect with the ball properly, I think he miskicked it a bit, and it was a poor pass. Cash perhaps could have done better, but from there, Kane just showed his quality. Great pass to Moura, and put on a plate. So what can you do about that? But for me, and we don't say this very often at all because he's absolutely superb. But Martinez won't want to see that one again.
No, I agree with that. I think it's interesting. I've noticed a lot from my English friends that I've made over the years that rarely is a goal down to great skill by the opposition. It's always linked to a mistake on your club's part. But I do think there's two parts of that, and I agree with James.
No, absolutely. It's one of those ones where you're watching it in real time and you kind of think to yourself, like, where are you going? Where are you going? Nope. It's just the anxiety builds as you're seeing it go, and just seeing him kind of charge out at that point. I was only, I think that was one of the few times I got out of my seat, and it wasn't for a good reason. So,
yeah.
We digress, and I think from there on in, Villa had its tails between its legs for the rest of the half. Not a lot going on. It looked like we were a little trepidatious. Spurs were getting on the ball a little bit more. And a Mourinho side, too, the setup to counterattack, when they're dominating the ball, something's definitely wrong with the way you're set up and the way your team's approaching things. So looking at the rest of the half, we just looked really ineffective. Do you think it was our press was just not working? Were we backing off of them? Or is it just sort of low confidence and just like second best the whole night? I'll leave it up to you guys.
Yeah, I was quite positive, if I'm honest, the first half hour or so. I mean, it's whilst we weren't getting any shots away, we felt like we were as comfortable as we can be without really dominating it. I didn't see them scoring, if I'm honest, after that first 30 minutes or so. And it was out on, I think, their goal. And once they got that, their tails went up slightly, and ours just went, the heads fell to the ground. And I think they said on the TV last night it was the first time that we've not had a shot in the first half of a match for a long time. I think it's pre-championship, so that's an awful long time. So that just spells out the problem, doesn't it? I mean, you normally got someone having a go, from 30 yards, which is obviously, not 9 times out of 10 it doesn't go in, but you think you'd have someone have a shot at some point, and just nothing happened. We got a few good areas, I seem to recall, and we forced a few corners, but aside from that, heads dropped and confidence seemed to go as well, which is not great because we've got a really good season on the whole. Obviously the results of late haven't been great, but we're in a good position for probably where we expected to be. So disappointing to see. Like I said to you last night, Eddie, it just feels like it's fizzling out a bit at the moment, and we've got to put the brakes on it. What were your thoughts, Derek?
Well, I felt like that Villa looked pretty comfortable prior to the goal, not with a whole lot of threat from them as well. But as soon as that goal went in, it seemed a noticeable change in the energy level and just the body language seemed, looked like a team that was low on confidence. And once that went in, I had concerns that we would really muster anything the rest of the match. And there wasn't a whole lot mustered, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And I think that kind of leads in perfectly to the second half because there wasn't much to talk about. It was kind of a flailing attempt at a football match. Spurs weren't doing a ton with it. We weren't doing a ton with it. El Ghazi came on and added a little bit of impetus. I think, like James kind of said, I think he would have probably been a better bet to start on, especially on the left where Trezeguet looks a little lost. But overall, just, some ineffective subs and just a lousy game. But I just want to talk about one more moment, the one that a few folks have alluded to already, the penalty. So Kane gets put through on a good ball down the left. Matty Cash dives in a way that, I didn't think he necessarily needed to. But, I think Kane also makes a meal of it, lets the ball roll and kind of leans into the contact. So Derek, I'll start with you. Is that on Cash? Is that on?
I think Kane, well, I think Kane was really clever and he knew what he was doing. And I think we would have wanted that penalty called as well if it was the other way. I don't know if Cash was egregiously wrong in that. He was kind of put himself in an awkward position, but you're going against a guy who really knows what he's doing. So I wasn't too surprised with the call, and I wasn't really complaining too much about it. But I think it could have not been called as well. But I think we would have wanted it.
Yeah, Kane's a really clever player, isn't he? With the fouls he draws in and the way he deals with the referee during the game. You watch him moaning at the referee the whole game. He's always on it. And for me, it's not the sort of football I like. I don't like to see penalties won like that, because for me, he was sort of tried to deceive Cash by letting the ball go out for a corner. Cash probably thought he's going to swing it in with his left foot, so he had something to block. But like we said, he was too clever for him, and he's tackle's gone in. It's a penalty, but it's not the sort of penalty I like. It's a clever striker, a bit like Shearer used to do all those years ago. It's how he gets a lot of his goals. But like you said, Derek, if it was Watkins at the other end, I wouldn't be complaining at all. Of course I wouldn't. But it's just a bit of cleverness that we haven't really got at the moment. I suppose we have got it with Grealish, but we haven't with anyone else.
Yeah, it's a real streetwise move.
That's it.
Very cute in a way that I'd agree I don't love, but also when Jack's doing the same thing, I'm not opposed. So it's one of those things where I feel like we do lack a little bit of that streetwise mentality, especially in the forward positions. And hopefully, and we'll get on to this in a little bit with Watkins going to the England squad, being around some of these players who have a little bit more of that now, playing at the top level. Hopefully you can take a little bit of that back home with them and use that to kick on with us. But, when a game is this rough to watch, I usually try and stay away, but I'll go ahead and ask just in case. Was a man of the match for anyone, if you want to give it to someone on the Villa side? I'll start with James, then I'll go to Derek.
So I think, in truth, I think 3 of the 4 defenders were fine. They're all 7s out of 10. So I think Cash, unfortunately, he'll be disappointed with his effort overall. So for me, I think Target again. Yeah, Target or Konza, I think, were both excellent. On the whole, they did their jobs, but that's only comparable to the rest of the players. In truth, it's not excellent by their standards, but it was better than most.
Yeah, I'll go with Konza. I've just been impressed with his growth this season. He just looks like a real player. Unfortunately, he doesn't put the ball in the back of the net, which is what we're kind of needing right now. But Konza for me, yeah.
No, I think I'd agree with that. I think the one moment where I actually felt pretty good about what we were doing, he got caught one-on-one. I think it was Lucas Moura, and just kind of took him to the cleaners, took it right off of them and dribbled out. And I just thought to myself, like, how is he not in the England squad if Eric Dyer, who did not touch the field yesterday, is? But we're going to get on to that in a little bit. So, it's tough right now with only a few more games to go in the season. Europe's starting to look like it's a little too far, step too far for where we're at right now. So I guess the question, right, as we head into this international break, knowing Jack's going to be back for the Fulham match when we return, what are your guys' hopes for the rest of the season? Like, what do you think we can theoretically improve on with the players we have in-house? Where do we go from here? What are your real expectations for this last run of games when we get back? And Derek, I'll start with you.
I thought Europe was a stretch, but I'm so thrilled to not be watching a relegation-threatened team that maybe my hopes weren't high enough. But I think Europe was always going to be a stretch, not just for this year achieving it. But if we had, I think it would have been difficult for the club to put a squad together that was going to be able to cope with those extra matches. And I just thought that's a little ahead of schedule. As far as the remainder of this year, I'd love to see some of the young fellas get in and see what they have to offer. I don't follow the young guys on the Villa stream that like some of my fellow Houstonians do. We've got a couple guys that really have their fingers on the pulse of the young guys, and I'd love to see some of them. I think this year can be treated as kind of a glorified set of training sessions from here on out. That doesn't sound too inspiring, I know, to maybe long-suffering fans, but I don't know. I think we've got the right people in charge. I've followed them since '99. I've never felt more confident in the people in charge. I think they're building things the right way. There'll be setbacks, but I think we're going in the right direction. But I think this year was just not ready for prime time quite yet.
I'm completely with you, Derek, and everything you said, and you've said most of the things I was going to say in truth. But I think the main point is we're above expectations at the moment. I did say I think I was being optimistic at the start of the season, and I hope for a mid-table finish, which we could well achieve. My own opinion is I just hope it doesn't sort of fizzle out now. I think our season's been too good to finish 14th to 15th or something like that, because that wouldn't reflect as to how good we got out of the traps this season. So just be nice to pick the form back up again, get back to doing what we do well, which is front foot football. I think really, taking control of teams, high press, looking a real threat, getting that solid defence back. But I think on the whole, the defence has been pretty solid. We're not getting beat too heavy. And I'd love to see some integration of some of the youngsters, as you said, Derek. I think that'd be great. I mean, I think it's a really good opportunity, given we're not going to get European football, and also we're not going to go down. So let's get a couple of those young lads in amongst the squad, see if they're ready for it now, or if they need to go out on loan next season. I think that's a really good point.
No, I think I think you're both kind of spot on there. It's like I said before, like you're a step too far, but we're still punching above our weight, and we're playing on the whole, if you average out the season, pretty well. So I'd like to see a few exciting moments. I'd like to see us put a little bit of a run together at the end. And if we finish top half, I think no one can look at that from where we were last year and what we were expecting when the season started and feel too beaten up about it. But I'll pose kind of a hypothetical before we kind of talk about internationals very quickly. This side is missing things. I think we're short in a few different areas. But if you could add one thing, be it like a kind of player or even someone very specific that you have in mind that you think would really help us not only cope without a guy like Jack, but also when he's back on the team, make us a better team, what would that be? What are we missing right now? What does this team need to sort of address in the summer? And I'll start with Derek. I
think we were hoping Barkley would be a similarly creative type of player, or somebody who would take a little of that pressure off of Jack. There's been varying degrees of success with that experiment, and not so much lately. I think a lot of us would just assume he'd go back to London, but I don't know how fair that is. But I do think it's glaringly obvious for somebody who's not even an expert that we are kind of relying too much on one guy, and we have to have players that can take the pressure off of him. He will eventually get frustrated if that's not addressed. I do think we have the people who want to do things right, who want Villa to be no longer a footnote or just making up the numbers, or some glorious club from history. I think we have people who see Villa being what they were before I started watching them in the 90s. And I think if I can see it, some guy from Texas, then surely they can see what we need a lot better than I can. But I do feel like Jack he's been kind of dragging this team along for 3 or 4 seasons now, and it's time to give him some real top-level help. Anyway, that's obvious. So I'll leave it to James to pick that up.
Yeah. I wish I had all the answers, but I'm confident we're going to just reinvest a similar sort of amount to last season. So if we do that, we're looking at the next tier of player now this time around. I think we're probably looking at a couple of 20 to 30 million pound players rather than just one. Or I think we could be looking at 3 or 4 that sort of level of player, which will put us into the sort of the next tier of clubs and really push on for those European places. For me though, the one glaring obvious missing aside from Jack, it's just the option on the bench of a forward. Keenan Davis. I like the lad, but he's not a Premier
Any
League
hopes
striker.
for Wesley? Any hopes for Wesley? We haven't talked about him.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I hope he comes back, but he's had a really nasty injury, hasn't he? So it's I hope we'll see him before the end of this season. Actually, Derek, I really do, because it'd be good to know where he's at, if he's going to be, a real option for next season or not. Because we did spend an awful lot of money on him, and he did do a decent job last season in part. I mean, he's a completely different footballer to Watkins, and I suppose the advantage of having good Wesley in the side is you could perhaps bring Watkins out wide, which I quite like the idea of, having a sort of a bit of pace and a goal-scoring player out wide, which would free Jack perhaps to go towards the middle as well. So, yeah, I think either a striker or, like we say, just a plan B, whether that might be, whether that's someone coming from the number 8, number 10 role, or someone on either the wings. I think that's where we need some magic at the moment.
No, I agree, and I think when I see Wesley, and he, word on the street is he's going to have a few test matches over the course of the international break to hopefully get him back up to fitness. So some behind closed doors friendlies that will hopefully see him in contention for the last run of games. I honestly, in best case scenario, see the Carew Agbanglahor partnership kind of being reunited in a very different kind of way. This big guy kind of playing off the little one, a little bit pacier. I think Ollie's a more complete footballer than Gabby was. It's hard to say early doors with Wesley, but I think he would have hit double figures in a bad team last year if he didn't get injured. He got to 5 before that horror tackle against Burnley, but that would be great. I think I think Derek kind of nailed it. Someone who is in that Barkley role, but just a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more hungry, a little bit more just like able to graft when the game's not necessarily going his way. I always talk about my favorite player in the world, Cunha from Hertha, who's like buddies with Dougie Luiz, but just someone in that mold who can play as a second striker, who can play up front as needed, who can drift a little bit and do the same things Jack does. Obviously, there's no player in the world like Jack, but someone who could do similar things and fill a similar hole, and is just willing to take the game by the scruff of the neck, because we're really lacking that outside of Jack right now, and it's a tough watch when he's not there. So moving on to something a little bit cheerier, we are heading into a break. I think it's coming at the perfect time for Villa right now, given the way things are going form-wise. And looking at the England squad, we have a few internationals getting called up. John McGinn going to Scotland. On Lone Ranger right now, Conor Hurahan going to Ireland. But, we have a few England internationals as well, with Mings and surprise inclusion, Ollie Watkins. So just looking at that England squad, first of all, were you surprised to see Watkins in the squad? Were you thinking it was going to be someone else like Bamford? And we talked about Cons a little bit too. What do you make of his exclusion to the squad? James, to start with you.
Yeah, shocks on both points, if I'm truthful. I think Watkins, he's done well. First season in the Premier League, he's done well for us, and he is a real workhorse, isn't he? He's someone who run the channels, and he's also is a threat in front of goal, which is probably the ideal sort of forward player. But in terms of Konza, I'm really disappointed for him. I think he's in the form of his life at the moment. He, if anything, he's ahead of Mings for me. I can't work out why he's not in there. You've already mentioned Dyer as well. It's like, how can a player that's not getting in the Spurs team? We had Roden in yesterday. He's pretty much an unknown ahead of a so-called England international. It doesn't seem right to me. So it feels hopefully won't be waiting as long as he were for Jack to get in the team, but he can't be far away. He really can't. And I think notable mentions as well for Target and Cash. I think both of those aren't a million miles away. We think Trent's not having a great season at the moment. He's been left out, so there's room for a right back in there. And I know they've brought other players in, but and I know Target's been talked about as well. Has been watched recently, so he probably won't be a million miles away. So it's a good time to be a Villa player at the moment. You seem to be being watched quite a lot by Gareth, and I just hope they take the chances. Derek, what do you think?
Well, I am really not the guy to talk international football with. As an American, I am not terribly excited about our own national team, and so I am not a big follower. I do watch the World Cup, I do watch the Euros, but I really only watch it to watch Villa players. That's just, it's something that I've never really got too excited about the U.S. team, and I'm not from England, so I want my guys to be happy on my club. So if it motivates a certain type of player, I do feel like Konza is probably worthy, but to say I have an intricate knowledge of who he's competing with outside of the games I see Villa play, I would probably be not really have a whole lot of info to give you guys on that. I'm just not, that's not my thing at all. But I do kind of worry about our guys getting injured in a meaningless match. That actually concerns me more than anything else when it comes to the international game. But sorry, I'm not good very much input on this one.
No, I get it. And you actually bring up a really good point. I think there was a little bit of shock that Jack was dropped. I wasn't surprised because, he's been injured. Same thing with Cash, who I think probably could have played himself into contention if he wasn't out for the run-in. But, when I think about it, I think about Watkins Touchwood, who hasn't had an injury record over the course of his career. Like, this is the last thing I want or need. And I look at Mings, who has had a pretty rough injury record over the course of his career. Luckily, not when he's gotten to Villa again, Touchwood again. But the last thing I need for the run-in is someone, especially a Watkins character, to get injured before he faced the sort of last run of games. So, yeah, let's hope that they stay healthy. Let's hope that Southgate opens his eyes to Konza, who I think is, I think Target and Cash as well, but I think Konza's been, borrowed only a couple people, like probably the best defender in the league, not just the best English defender. And let's hope, especially for James's sake, he doesn't declare for Portugal because, well, I think that would be funny. I just want to see him wear a national jersey somewhere. Like, I think that would be probably rough going for the England fans out there. But I think that wraps up our talk about, Villa goings in the world today. Not a ton to talk about, especially after a rough weekend. So I think that'll bring us perfectly into our global villain section. And Derek, thanks again for joining us this week, all the way down from sunny Texas. I kind of alluded to it in the lead-up tweet that I put out, but deep in the heart of Texas, which is a fond song of mine. I have family down in San Antonio, so I hear that every time I go to Six Flags with them. But you mentioned
they're almost as proud as Brits as far as where they're from. They're almost as proud as Brits are. So not quite. I don't think anybody's on that level.
But I think it does beg the question, because you said, you started following in 99. Why on earth are you a Villa fan, especially in a state that is so wrapped up in the other football as well as, the more classic American sports? When I think of American states, obviously I have the 13 colonies, but I think of Texas first. So tell me a little bit about what brought you to the land of Villa.
Well, it's interesting. I was actually I've lived most of my life here in the Houston area, but I was actually in Phoenix, Arizona when I came into the whole Villa thing. And I think I was a newly married guy, and we were as broke as most newly married couples are. And so we had only free TV. And 98, I believe, was 98 France World Cup. I got wrapped up in that. Just thought it was a nice change from what I was used to as far as all the American sports. Not to replace those, but just in addition to, kind of had a few players that stood out to me. I'm trying to remember who they are now. It's an age ago. But I just felt like I needed to support a club And I've always been like this principled sports fan guy. You support the local team. You don't glory hunt, as you call it. You're not a glory hunter. You're not a bandwagon, is what we call it here. So, no way Manchester United or Liverpool or Chelsea. That was never going to happen. And just over the course of a year or so, this team with this great name. This is probably such a common story. The name, the colors, they all appealed to me. Then I read about the history, and I don't know, it just connected with me. There was a couple other clubs in the running, but they never were really in the running. And with all the suffering I've done with my Houston teams, it was kind of a natural. So there you have it.
That's as good a reason as any, I think. So I suppose I should ask: have you got any regrets? You know, you've obviously it must be what 20 years or so you've been a Villa fan. So
yeah, 21, 22 years. My regrets are there have been a couple of times that I put off going to Villa Park, and something got in the way later on, and it still has never happened. My only Villa matches have been friendlies over here in the States. Kind of makes me feel like a fraud running this running the supporters club that I've never been, but I aim to correct that soon.
No, we can absolutely organize, because the only time I actually went over to England for a match, it ended up being at Wembley and not at Villa Park. So I'm in the same boat actually doing this podcast. So no, Derek, we can organize. We can get together and make that trip happen.
And we should. I probably have a dozen people have told me they'd be angry if I didn't tell them when I was going over, because they want to join me. So I'm looking forward to it. This actually may be the year that I do it, if we are back in business with proper attendance next season.
And I think a good question to kind of come from that too. You mentioned feeling like a fraud, which you're of course not. There's different kinds of fans out there, but you do run this supporters club. So coming from Phoenix, heading to Houston, or kind of the homecoming, if you will. So you said you grew up in the area. How'd you come to start the Space City Lions? And how did you sort of gather this group?
Well, it was, I was kind of on my own for several years in Arizona, and Facebook wasn't quite the thing, Twitter wasn't quite the thing that it is now. So the social media stuff wasn't really too active to help like it does now, and so I was kind of on my own. I ended up back here in 2008, back here in the Houston area, and I think it was a few years later, there were some friendlies. One of them was in Chicago. I think it was 2012. And I met a bunch of the other supporters from other American cities there. Got to know them, connected with them on social media. Then Houston hosted Villa in 2014. And a lot of those guys I'd met on social media were really giving me the full court press to start a group in Houston. And I tried to push it off on a couple of expats and people who I felt like who were more qualified to do it, but I was the only one willing to do it. So here I am, and now I'm talking about a sport I probably shouldn't be on somebody's podcast. So there it is. No, but I've loved, and I get there's always the banter thing, and I get a little ribbing for my American ways and my Texas ways, but for the vast majority, it's really been open arms for the supporters, the Villa supporters from England, the Villa supporters from here in America and Canada. It really is a family, and it's really carried me through some really awful years of watching the club. I mean, it's been the supporters that kept me interested for a few years, because the club surely wasn't doing it. They were awful to watch. But no, I think it's the supporters that's just the amazing thing that's kept it going here. But yeah, we have a nice mix. Locals, we have our elder statesman. He was at the '57 FA Cup final, so we've got some history to talk about in our group. Some really, we've got some good guys and gals in there.
Sounds fantastic, Derek. That's amazing to have someone who's around from 1956. That's 57, sorry. So talk to us about the sort of group setup, where you all guys meet up, what watching a game looks like, how many are there, that sort of thing, please.
This year, obviously, it's a small thing when you consider everything that everybody's been through. I really hate, we've kind of lost some traction, just like everybody has. And now that we have a team that's not awful to watch and can be really fun to watch when they're playing well, we've got more neutrals who are interested. And so I do kind of hate that we've lost some traction. But I think with another good window, we'll get some of those glory hunters in. But we meet up at a place in Houston called the Phoenix on Westheimer, and is a fantastic sports bar type atmosphere with some pretty good local food. And like I said, we share it with a couple other groups. We share it with the Man City group and the Celtic group. So you can believe the Man City gets it from both of us as far as European Cups, So, although they'll probably remedy that soon, I believe.
So I imagine it's pretty lively there. But you mentioned, you have some elder statesmen. You kind of got thrust into this role.
Yes, very much so.
So how have you sort of, you do have a group though. So I'm wondering a little bit, how you've kind of acquired these other Houstonians, be it expats. Have you done some recruiting? Have you sort of like put out feelers? Is it just word of mouth?
It's been word of mouth. It's been social media. I guess we've got myself included, a couple of people that actually know how to use social media a little bit. So we just try to, before this year, obviously, we every week that we had a meet up, we made sure it was posted on Twitter and on Facebook. We've got a website that we always try to get out there. And so just trying to keep people engaged and just having, a constant presence on the weekends whenever it's not a 6 a.m. game, we try to get together. So just making sure people know we're around. And of course, Villa fans love other Villa fans. So it's kind of just lots of word of mouth. And looking forward to what's coming up in the years to come, because I do think we're going to acquire some more followers.
Definitely. And I think the last question I'll sort of pose before we kind of turn it over to plugs and everything like that. You've followed the club for so many years. You've had some ups, you've had some downs, as we all have following this wonderful, crazy club of ours. But, what's your best Villa memory over the years? The one that really sticks out is like, that was just a good day.
Oh, my. I mean, it feels kind of silly because I've only gone to friendlies, but the thing in Minnesota a couple of years ago, meeting all the players who got us promoted, meeting Dean Smith, John Terry, I know why he has the reputation he has, because I think he could charm anybody. That guy is just such a charming fellow. We'll just say it like that. But it was just a great long weekend we had up there. Made our presence known to all the Minnesota United fans. They'll not soon forget that scene, I'm sure. But just meeting some of the people involved with running the club and some of the players that are obviously heroes to us. That was just a fantastic weekend in Minnesota in 2019. So that's definitely it for me.
That sounds awesome.
But I would like to improve upon it. Yeah, I'm hoping to improve upon those memories here in the near future.
I hope so for you.
I have a feeling it'll be pretty emotional the first time I'm at Villa Park. I'm sure I will be.
Yeah, it'd be quite an occasion to see you at Villa Park. I'd look forward to welcoming you for a beer, hopefully.
Absolutely.
In terms of, you've mentioned you're quite a big sports fan. Obviously, Texas is a big sports area. I mean, where does Villa rank amongst the different teams you support?
Well, it's really tough days in Houston these days. Even our successes have been tainted somewhat lately. And that just has been brutal. I'll be honest with you. You guys have not caught me at my highest sports fan level, mainly because of all the awfulness going on in Houston over the last few years. I mean, the Rockets are in the midst of like a historic losing. I think they've lost 20 in a row. Everybody hates the Astros because of the scandal. And then the Texans are an absolute circus. So go Cougars. That's all I can say about that. As far as I think Villa is actually they're the team that I have the most passion for. I'll be honest, it varies with whoever's doing well, but I think just the involvement with running the club, I have a little more connection to the Villa, even though they're the one non-local team that I really support. But yeah, the Houston sports scene right now is an absolute grease fire. Oh, it's awful. So up to Villa all the way.
Absolutely. No, as a New York sports fan, I get that. When the lows are there, they're especially low. But Derek, thanks so much for joining us today. I wish if we did have a video, this is obviously not going to be. This is going to be an audio recording, but Derek's wearing his University of Houston hat. So if you're in the UK, we hope you also tune in for March Madness and hop onto the Houston bandwagon. I think, knock on wood, they're going to have a nice run this year.
Let's go. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, obviously going to end in tears like it always does, but hey, we still have hope.
As long as you don't
Thanks,
come
fellas. I appreciate y'all putting up with me.
No, not at all. As long as they don't come across Sister Jean's Loyola, I think we're good. But this is the part of the show we open up for plugs. Derek, I'm not sure if you have anything going on in terms of the Houston club just opening back up, or any sort of philanthropy or things you just want to share with the nice people. The floor is yours.
Well, I know it's a kind of a small group, but I just love our local Villa supporters group. We're called Space City Lions. We're on all the social media, or not all of it. We're on Twitter and Facebook. Just look for AVFC. That's S, not soccer, but supporters club. AVFC _ Space City Lions. We also have a website, spacecitylions.com. We have kind of gotten away from our official meetups this season, although we do occasionally meet up with a little impromptu get-togethers. Just waiting for things to get the all clear with the lockdowns and all that. But we'll be back at it next season, I hope. And look us up on Facebook, look us up on Twitter, check out our website. We're always glad to welcome out-of-towners in. We get them quite often. Houston's got a lot of people coming in for work. We don't really have any local charities other than what our bar runs, which is called Friends of the Phoenix, and they just do a lot of Houston area charity stuff. So we're connected with them somewhat, and I think all of the North American groups do contribute to the Acorns facility there in Birmingham. So we have a connection with them as well. But yeah, we're always looking forward to seeing Villans visit our humble little bar, and they will be showing a good time and probably will not have to pay for a beer. So come see us.
James, that's your cue.
Oh yeah, always up for free. Always up for free beer. Always. So yeah.
Travel
when
far
I can.
For it. Well, Derek, thank you so much. James, anything you'd like to share with the nice people out there?
No, just hopefully better times are coming again. Let's welcome Jack back soon, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be sending around as we always do, the Houston Supporters Club socials for folks who are traveling through or just want to get involved, reach out. It's always a good place to talk and chat. And it's a lovely group of folks, Derek included, of course. We're also going to be passing around the GoFundMes for the Gambia Lions, the Ghana Lions. The Ghana Lions actually just made the first step towards getting that football pitch there. So we're really happy that we were able to help contribute to that a little bit. They got the plot of land, it's getting bulldozed, and we just need to keep contributing so they can, start getting back on the pitch and helping out the youth in that village, which is such a phenomenal thing to be doing. As for us, we're going to be recording a preview for Fulham coming up. But in the meantime, just like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We're just posting these on YouTube. There's no video or anything, but it's sometimes very helpful. People prefer that instead of the normal podcast listening. But we just thank everyone for listening to us waffle about Villa for X amount of time. We like doing it. It's fun. Hopefully Derek had a little fun today too. And yeah, if no one has anything else to say, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.